Well, welcome everybody to the Resilient Leadership Podcast, where everything that we talk about is aimed at helping you to lead with a greater sense of calm, clarity, and conviction, even in anxious times. My name is Bridget, and today I am joined, as always, by Irvine Nugent, my good friend and my collaborator. And Irvine, how are you?
I'm doing great. As we record this, it is well into the beginning of December. And I was thinking this morning, oh my God, where did 2025 go to? It's kind of like, it's like what my mother said, just wait till you get older, it goes quicker. And I said, yep, correct, mother. It's the winter is here. And I do love the holiday time, as stressful as it can be. I have a lot of great memories and I love creating new memories around this time. So life is good. How about yourself?
Very well. And like you, I love this time of year. And what our listeners can't see is that we happen to dress in a very holiday color, both you and I.
We're like two cranberries, I think.
We are. Yeah. But yes, I'm in a really wonderful place and I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah. Well, with that in mind, tee it up for us. What are we going to talk about today?
Yeah, so today's topic is titled How Not to Take Things Too Personally. Mm-hmm. And don't you think, Irvine, that this is a topic everybody can relate to?
Oh, God, yes. Well, certainly me, first of all, and many, many others. Yeah, this is such a great topic.
Yeah, because at one point or another in our careers or in our lives, every one of us, right, has felt offended or maybe disrespected or undermined, maybe just treated unfairly in some way. And it, could be as simple as like we're in a meeting and a colleague cuts us off or our boss doesn't seem to value our expertise or our contribution, right? Yeah. Or I don't know, maybe it's just a criticism that gets kind of leveled at us or a judgment that we feel that we think is totally unfair. And some of the times we're able to let these things go. Mm-hmm. And other times not so easy. They kind of get stuck under our skin and they fester. Mm. And then we're starting to take the incident now very personally, and we maybe start to ruminate about it or complain or talk to other people about it. And it seems like the more we do it, the more that erodes our resilience and our equanimity. So, the reason I wanted to have this conversation with you today is because I think this is obviously a leadership podcast, and I think leaders are so vulnerable to this, right? Because by virtue of their authority and their visibility in an organization, they're just going to be targets sometimes for people's dissatisfaction and disgruntlements.
Yeah.
And guess Absolutely. What? Sometimes people are going to levy those at you in ways that aren't entirely professional or appropriate.
Yeah, so true.
Being how human beings are.
Indeed.
All right, so here's the good news. This is a skill we can develop. It's a muscle we can grow. And we're going to actually share with listeners several strategies for moving past these kinds of things. And inevitably, in one of these strategies that we share, I think to you, our listener, you're going to find something in here that you can practice. But Irvine, I was thinking of you and anticipating this conversation. And one of the things that I'm curious about is, can you think of a time in your own career or your own life where you took something really personally in a way that got under your skin and kind of festered there for a while?
Oh boy, I have a number. As the Bible says, they are legion. As I was thinking about this, I think one that came to mind is I remember I was part of a board of directors in a nonprofit, and I had spearheaded an effort to survey members to get feedback.
Okay.
I was presenting some of the feedback to the board. And there was another board member, and if truth be told, I already had my preconceived suspicions about them. Uh-huh. And at the meeting, they said, so you didn't survey everyone, you just took a sample. And I said, yes, that's correct. And all they said one word, they just said, interesting. And that just set me off internally. I really felt I had a story around that basically they were criticizing me for the work I had done. I went into feeling wounded that I put all this work in and that's all you can say. Resentment built up because of course I said nothing. I just let it go. And I carried that. I absolutely carried that.
Mm-hmm.
I resented the person because I felt they didn't appreciate me or understand me.
Mm-hmm.
It was a big kind of personal affront that I carried with me.
Wow.
Yeah. And, it was only, I think it was a year later, we were in a conversation. And actually, I think it was the anniversary when the idea came up, we should survey the members. And this person turned around and said, oh, Irvine did a great job in that last year. Maybe we should kind of do the same thing this year. And I was like, what? And it was just all my own story, but it was just from that one word, so crazy that I kind of developed this story, resentment, all of that, and just over personalized it all with a reality that wasn't there.
Isn't that's a great example? And you carried it for a while. And
for almost a year.
Yeah.
Yes. I never let you know.
Yeah. Oh, that is fascinating. And then you come to find out it really was a story that you had told yourself.
Oh, totally. Totally. It was not based in fact or reality.
And I love that the one word, interesting.
I know. Yes. It didn't, it was just interesting. Yes.
Oh,
so I'm curious, Bridget, how about you when you think of a time perhaps when you took something personally? What kind of comes to mind for you?
Yeah, well, so this is a personal example, which I think, families can certainly cause us to take things personally, right? So this happened several years ago, but I still remember it quite well. I have a very close family member who I adore. Whenever I would see them at the holidays, we would always rekindle our close connection and everything. Well, I remember about 10 years ago when I co-wrote and published my first book, Just in Conversations, and it had gotten out somehow that, I had done this. So he knew I had, and I was anticipating that, he'd be curious about this work. It'd take me a while to write this book. And now listen, at the family gathering, there was not one question about the book, about my work. And quite frankly, there never had been, but I thought, well, maybe this will be interesting, right?
Yeah.
Silence. And it even came up like somebody else said, oh, Bridget, I heard you just published your first book. And okay, so the family member apparently didn't think it was worthy of a single question. And, being who I am, and I'm sure you can relate to this, Irvine, as a coach, I'm always asking people questions, right? So I'm always asking this relative, tell me about what's going on in your work. How are you? Okay, silence. Fast forward to publishing my second book, and the same thing happened again. No curiosity, no questions, nothing. And I remember for a while, and my husband brought it up too, thinking, wow, they don't even care enough to ask me about this. And I began to feel like you did, like it was very personal.
Yeah.
It kind of got under my skin for a while until I realized the following. This delightful family member never asks anybody questions about their work. So how could it be personal to me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Par for the course. Yeah.
I mean, I just kind of woke up and realized, wait, why do you care about that? That has nothing to do with you. Move on and forget about it. Isn't it funny how, for both of us, there was an assumption there. Your assumption was different from mine, right? But my assumption was incorrect, which is that this was specifically about me. It had nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
So anyways, aren't these are just very interesting.
These are crazy. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And so common. So common.
I'm sure that our listeners are shaking their head and thinking of their own examples.
Yeah. Been there, done that.
Exactly. All right, Irvine. So we, in our podcast, we really seek to take a systems perspective on whatever topic, we're discussing. And in particular, a relationship systems perspective, understanding how do relationship systems operate under the influence of anxiety. So let's just start there. What might you share with folks about a systems perspective when we zoom out and kind of look at the bigger picture?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think, what you'll begin to see is maybe some of these core tenets of when we think of relationship systems, some of these core tenets that we talk about, and it's so applicable here. So, like the first one is, when there's anxiety, and what we've both been talking about is some anxiety that's going on in a relationship system, what we tend to see is a correlation with reactivity also increasing. And so we become reactive, and we both were. The perfect example. We both went into reactive because we perceived there was a threat. And this is a story we both made up. And so we had perceived that this was a threat, and we went into automatic functioning.
Mm-hmm.
And so that tends to happen when we are stressed and feeling reactive. And so we're saying and doing things from that place of anxiety rather than a thoughtful place. I mean, I'm just thinking of my own story. Like if I was in a more thoughtful place, I could have easily turned around and said to that person, "Oh, do you have any insights about a better way of doing this or something?" And I could have easily got that answer. "No, actually, I think what you did was great." But I didn't. I went into a reactive and made up my story. So we tend not to be thoughtful. This place of reactivity as well, it tends to increase. So we become more and more reactive. And we respond to offenses or perceived offenses from a place of habit or a place of threat rather than this grounded place. So this inability of us to say, "Oh, I've done this before. This always happens." We go into this automatic place of behavioral habit rather than really focusing out and catching ourselves. And then the other thing, and of course, this is where the systems part becomes so acute, is that in a relationship system, what's affecting us is affecting everyone. It's contagious. So instead of our thoughtful response becoming contagious, what becomes contagious is our anxious response, our response of being offended. And of course, we think that we're containing it all. We think we're doing a masterful job of, not letting anyone see what's going on. But of course, we know that it's impacting our emotions and our moods and our stories and how we show up. And so we can't help but that bubbling over the surface and being transmitted is almost like this invisible virus, which another person catches. So that's kind of some thoughts around this. So I'm curious for you, Bridget, from a systems perspective, kind of what comes up for you as well.
Yeah, I'm really resonating and being reminded as I listen to you again about how, reactivity is the public face of anxiety, right? And
Yeah.
so it's just so clear that the both of us were reactive, and then that caught on somewhere. Like I know for me in the example I was sharing, as I recall, and this was many years ago, so I don't know if I'm getting the details right. I think I ended up kvetching about it with my husband, and he's like, "Yeah, they should really be asking you about that," right? And we both kind of got worked up.
Yeah.
It's just so helpful to remember that when you as a leader can remain grounded and present in an anxious situation, whether it's your own anxiety or others, it makes all the difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
Bottom line, makes all the
Absolutely.
difference. So, okay. So, I promised listeners that we would share some specific strategies. And I know in your work with leaders, you have found some things that help them to not take things so personally. I mean, we just talked about how common this experience is. So I'm sure it's come up in your coaching sessions. And so, I'm wondering, Irvine, what have you found to be useful strategies, either for the leaders that you work with or just for yourself to
Yeah.
develop this core skill?
Yeah. So I think the first one is when we've kind of talked about this, that when you begin to take things personally, it's almost like if you think about how does that show up in our body or somatically, it's almost like we're closing in, we're getting smaller because it's becoming so personal. And so the first thing is to then expand, is to get the bigger picture. So realize that you have all of a sudden closed in on yourself. And we've used this before of getting on the balcony, this symbol of, you go to this beautiful balcony and you see what's in front of you. So it's this invitation to recognize we're becoming more closed in ourselves. And so how can we expand our perspective? And that really is done beautifully by asking maybe some powerful questions. kind of just stopping and then really, what's really going on here?
Yeah.
This person who's offended me or triggered me, where might it be coming? Or am I misreading what they said?
Mm-hmm.
I got triggered by one word, interesting. So I could have even said, what does that mean? Am I missing something? I've gone down a road of interpreting that. Is there other interpretations of what that meant? And then, what might be a thoughtful way of responding instead of reacting? So
Mm-hmm.
it's this allowing yourself this bigger space just to see what's really happening in the here and now.
And Irvine, what I'm thinking about as I listen to you, and you and I know about getting on the balcony and we teach it and we train it and we
Mm.
coach. But if either one of us had done that in our own situations, we would have found a different path.
Oh, totally. I would not have been carrying what I was carrying for a year. I could have let it go months and months and months before. So, when I think about it now, yeah. So I think the second thing is assumptions. We make assumptions. And as human beings, we love to make stories and we can make those assumptions very quickly and we can go whole hog into that assumption.
Mm-hmm.
And I think an assumption we could make perhaps is assume the other person didn't intend to offend us. Maybe something they said was not artful or something, but maybe the core intent is that they're not out to actually offend us. They're probably dealing with something inside of them, and this is their way of processing it. And they're trying to kind of address their needs or their wants or something. And so can we just assume, okay, this isn't about me. This
Mm-hmm.
is more about them.
Mm-hmm.
So assume good intent.
Yes.
And then the third one is kind of an extension of that,
Yeah.
that what we might be seeing is actually it's not really a reflection of us. It's a reflection of them and their inner state. So really what can be happening is when someone says or does something or someone offends us, rather than the focus being on me, rather if we can think about what's going on internally within them, that
Mm-hmm.
this whatever they've said, whatever behavior they might have done, maybe this is something that is going on within them that has pushed them to act in this way.
Yeah.
All of them in some way is just allowing us just a little space to think, to ask questions, and just to catch the stories that we're in.
Mm.
I'm curious, Bridget, did they resonate with you, or have you anything else to add?
Oh, well, those definitely resonate. And, the thing is that it's easier said than done.
Oh,
And I just want to put that out
yeah,
there, right?
totally.
So
Yes.
it's important to be reminded of these things and then to recognize that it takes concerted practice.
Yeah.
Because once you become anxious, or others do, it's a lot harder to do this. We're talking about this now from a calm place. Nobody's offending us in the moment, So I would just invite, our listeners to think about those strategies that you just mentioned and kind of say to yourself, is there something in there that I could practice with more intentionality?
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Love
know?
that. Yeah.
But yeah, I can think of a couple of other things that I think, have helped myself and my clients to not take things too personally. And one is, setting and reinforcing boundaries when that's needed. Because,
Mm.
you just said, Irvin, that like what the person has said or done might not be artful. It might be messy, but it's a reflection of their inner state more than a reflection of you. And yes, let's assume that is the case. It still might not be something you want to tolerate. It still might not be appropriate for them,
Yeah.
right? To what
Yeah.
they've said or done. And so you have to step back and say, what's the boundary here that I need to reinforce?
Mm.
And I'm thinking of, one of the school principals that I've been coaching recently. And one of the things he was sharing with me is how there was a agitated parent who very reactive, who showed up at the drop off line, right in the beginning of school. So the principal's out there welcoming the children and, saying hi to the parents. And this guy comes up and just starts complaining in a very aggravated way about something. I want to, I don't know. And he just had to turn to the person and say, this is not the time or place for this conversation. If you want to
Wow.
have it, contact the front office and get on my schedule. And then he literally turned his body and went back to what he was doing, you know?
Wow.
So sometimes we have to figure out what's the missing boundary to protect
Yeah.
time and
Wow.
energy. I think that's important.
Yeah.
Here's another strategy. Step back and, because look, when we get offended or we feel undermined or we feel insulted or we feel, I don't know, unappreciated, we become other focused. Everything is about what the other person said or did, right?
Mm.
Like you, for a whole year, you're thinking about that other person who said, interesting.
Yeah.
So, what if we turn that back to ourselves and focus on our own definition of self, our own identity,
Mm.
our values, our convictions, our core principles, and root ourselves back in that definition of self and how we want to show up and function?
Yeah.
Don't you think, Irvin, that can be very calming when we unhook ourselves from that other focus and bring it back to self?
Absolutely. Yes. Yes, totally. And it just prevents that kind of intervention that kind of we need to really get back to the brass tacks and really help us examine what's going on here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's one other I would share, and we actually did a whole podcast episode on this, but it's about using this as an opportunity when you're having a hard time moving on and you're taking something really personally. It's a
Mm.
great opportunity to step back
Mm.
and get curious about what's really triggering you
Mm.
and what's really at the core of this, and be really honest with yourself. And like I said, and curious. So, like, for example, maybe the person has said something that goes against how you like to be perceived, right? Like, I'm not that kind of a person. I'm this kind of a person. As if somebody can steal our identity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe their communication hits a nerve with you because, truth be
Mhm.
told, you're vulnerable in that spot, right? Maybe you have some self doubts. Like, I'm thinking of a number of my clients who, like most great leaders, have struggled from time to time with imposter syndrome, right?
Mm.
Where they're kind of
Mhm.
feeling like not good enough. Then when somebody levies something at you, you get overly reactive to it because it hits at a place of vulnerability.
Yeah.
Do you think that makes sense too, Irvin?
Absolutely. Yes, yes, yeah. It's so important because so often we're an automatic when it comes to those triggers, and anything that can get us away from the automatic is so important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And very often that is a exercise that happens before we become skilled in interrupting it. It initially is an exercise of looking back and taking time
Yes.
to really examine and say, what just happened there? Let me zoom out and like what happened? And then we can anticipate them with a little more skill. But first of all, it's going to be an examination of what happened.
I think the word examination is good because at first blush, you might say, well, why am I having trouble moving past this? And then you would go right into the other. It'd be like, well,
Yeah.
because they're such a jerk or because
Yeah.
they were so thoughtless or careless. And well, let's give that another look, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, totally.
What's going on
Yeah.
with me? Okay. So Irvin, I don't know, any other thoughts or strategies that you think are worth sharing?
So one other one. It's funny actually. I just wrote a LinkedIn post this weekend. I think it was Saturday. I posted it, but I used a saying, a Yugoslav, or it's this saying, which was "complain to the one who can help you."
Ooh.
And I love that because so often, like it helps. What's our complaint?
Yeah.
Who's our complaint point? And if we're very honest with ourselves, we normally complain to get validated
Yeah.
and appreciate it for our hurt rather than really doing something about it. And that brings me to this point about, this distinguishing between a reactive and a productive. Like a reactive complaint, it comes out of that anxiety. It's the poor me, and it's looking for validation. It's looking for support. It's like, aren't they a terrible person? Look what they've done. And it's really, part of it, yeah, we have to spend a little time licking our wounds a little bit,
Sure.
but
Sure.
that just festers. I mean, you used that word at the very beginning.
Yeah.
If we stay in that space, it will fester. And
Mm-hmm.
so then the question then comes, can I move to a more productive place? And a productive place is kind of what we've been talking about. It's more thoughtful. We're more open to perhaps perhaps be open to learn from this situation, that
Yeah.
perhaps we are part of this as well, that we maybe something that we did or said kind of provoked this.
Yeah.
It's an opportunity perhaps to listen better, or actually to complain to someone who's going to challenge us a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I had done a productive, I'm thinking about this now, if I had a productive complaint to someone and I told this story about my very beginning, interesting,
Yeah.
they might have pushed back and said, well, did you ask them what they meant by that? Well, no. Well, why didn't you? Why don't you
Right.
go to them?
Right.
And that would have been like, oh, okay, yeah. Rather than someone like saying, oh, they were awful. Oh, how horrible. That's terrible.
Yeah.
So it's this is who are we going to, and what are we looking for in our community?
Oh, and Irvin, what you're saying is really, gosh, it's so important, because it's reminding me of this delicate balance that you said, sure, we need some time to lick our wounds, right? Like in the
Yes.
beginning, when it's fresh and we're sharing with a trusted friend, if the friend says, oh, well, and they challenge us a little bit, we might not be able emotionally to hear that, because
Yeah.
what we need is just to feel heard,
Yep.
right?
Yes.
So I'm remembering just recently, I was sharing with a friend something that had really offended me, or offended is not even the right word, had really troubled me, the actions of another. And she said, what's the bigger picture here? Great question, but I wasn't ready for it. I just went right back to talking about what I wanted to talk about, because I just needed, it was the first time I
Yeah.
was sharing it, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't ready to get on the balcony. I was just looking for a little human, like, oh man, that was really hard,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Now, that said, if we really don't want to stay stuck and we really want to let go and move forward, at some point we need to do exactly what you said, which is talk to somebody who can say, that's interesting. What do you think about this? Or what do you think about that? Timing is everything, is what I'm saying, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Well, Irvin, this has been such a great conversation as always. I feel like I learned something every time we talk, so, and I'm
Likewise.
reminded of something. The bottom line here is that taking things too personally and learning to move beyond that is so vital to our leadership, because what's at stake is our equanimity,
Yeah.
our well-being, our ability to lead with clarity and resolve, right? And we carry these things around for too long, they weaken us. Now, the good
Yeah.
news is it is a learnable skill.
Yeah.
And I think you and I would say we've gotten better at this over the years, have we not?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
This
Yes.
takes practice. So, to our
Yeah.
listeners, take something that you heard today and really commit to practicing it with intentionality. That's the only way we get better at anything, right? Is through practice. Well, Irvin, thank you for
Well,
this conversation. It's been a
yeah.
delight.
Likewise. I really enjoyed that. Brought up some interesting memories and kind of thought provoking, and about how we deal with it, and a challenge us as well to really be more thoughtful in our responses.
Thanks for joining us today, everybody. Take good care.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.